Hello and welcome to part 3. In this section I will be talking about the mushroom field, the mushrooms, and the critters. So, to begin, let's start with the mushrooms themselves. Mushrooms themselves, very simple, have a very simple structure to them. I did not create separate mushrooms for the for the poisoned or non-poisoned mushrooms. Rather, there is a separate check for that in the Centipede. So, let's take a look in the mushrooms, inside the mushrooms themselves. Now, the mushrooms act as listener objects as well. They are another example of the listener pattern for the mushroom field, where the mushroom field will wait for the mushrooms to tell them that they are dead to clear the position or to change their status of occupied or not. So first we have a very basic mushroom initializer. It sets their position, health, maximum health, their poison status, and the position of the sprites. The add to scene is yet another instantiation function made for the mushroom factory, which I will be going over after I get through the mushrooms. The mushroom update simply keeps track of what frame the animation is in, since the mushrooms do not move themselves. Very basic update. On the damage, that is when things change. So the health is reduced by 1, and the sprite position is incremented as well. And so what happens is first it checks if the health is 0. If it is, it will clear itself. It'll tell the mushroom field that it is dead and clear itself. Now, if it isn't, then the mushroom sprite will actually change its animation dependent upon its health and poison status. So that is how I kept track of the visual aspect of the poison status. It's a Boolean otherwise, which is checked later. Again, draw is simply drawing the mushroom sprite at its location. On destroy, it will remove its own collider and add relevant points to the player. X position and Y position are just return value functions, so they will give you its current location. The poisoned status, or the poison, will set the poisoned to 4, which alters the mushroom sprite. It will reset it to whatever, it will set it to its equivalent, but with its poisoned look. And then here is the bool to check if it is poisoned or not, and then the repair function, which will alter the mushroom depending on whether or not it has been poisoned so far. It will repair the mushroom and switch everything back to normal. So the repair does not get rid of the poison status, however. That is kept. And then it creates a tiny explosion that masks the regeneration. So over in the mushroom factory, it is same basic concept as the bullet factory, except this one will have numbers that are not 0 and 1, and as such has a lot more need for the stack. Same basic things. Returns a mushroom. Returns a mushroom and will convert the mushrooms to the bin. We'll add them to the bin. Again, same thing. It will register itself to the scene. It'll register itself to the scene if it exists. It will create a new instance of a mushroom if it does not. And it will properly delete itself at the end of the game. Again, same thing, not much different there. Things start getting different with the critters, however, with the mushrooms. Onto the field itself. The field is a game object which keeps track of the occupants of the field. A lot of things touch the field, but because the field is regenerated so often, it's like different fields for each of the players. So it could not be a singleton. All right, and the mushroom field instantiates itself, tells itself important information. The columns and rows are things determined, again, by the helper header that I created earlier. So when it is first spawned, it will do the construct field action or function, where it will simply loop through, and it has a random chance of generating a mushroom in that location. That is something else. The mushroom field contains the structure for a mushroom holder, and that is what the field is made of. It's a pointer to the mushroom, an array position, and a window position. The array position obviously meaning to the field itself, and the window position is its actual literal pixel position. And then there is the isOccupied status for quick and easy checking of whether or not the mushroom is, or whether or not there is a mushroom in that location. The deletion of the field is located here, where it simply loops through and checks if it is null or not. If it is null, then it passes over it. If it is not, then it will clear the field to ensure that no mushroom is left behind. Poison mushroom simply tells a mushroom at a given location to poison itself. The update checks whether or not the amount of mushrooms on the bottom part of the field, as determined above here, where it checks whether or not there are a limited amount of mushrooms. It checks whether or not it is there, and if it is, that's when it spawns the fleet. That is why it is a game object, by the way. If it wasn't a game object, there wouldn't have been a good way to update and check whether or not it was supposed to be spawning a flea. The spawning of creatures is all handled by the wave manager. The repair function, where this loops through and informs mushrooms that are damaged, only mushrooms that are damaged, to repair themselves. So not all of the mushrooms will repair themselves, as you saw when the player died. Only damaged mushrooms. That is damaged mushrooms, not destroyed mushrooms. So mushrooms that have been removed obviously cannot regenerate themselves. Clear mushroom. Clear mushroom tells a... clear mushroom is called by the mushroom itself when it dies. It will tell the mushroom field to clear that location. So the pointer, which is called mush, will turn itself to null and set isOccupied to false. And so that is the primary use of the listener function for the mushroom field. Spawn mushroom. The mushroom has the ability to create randomly a mushroom at a given location so long as there is not already a mushroom in that location. So it checks first whether or not the pointer is null. For double security, I could have also checked whether or not is occupied is true or false, but that would be an extra check, and if it is null, then is occupied would be false. Convert position is a function used by a lot of different things. It takes in two floats, the x position and y position of a given piece of a object, and it will return its grid position. Get at location simply returns the is occupied status of a arbitrary point in the grid. Get poisoned returns the poisoned status of that mushroom in that grid. And there is no destroy for it, because there is no special destroy function for it, because it does not contain any special things that need to be destroyed upon at the end of the game, or when it is removed, that is. So that is all for the mushroom field itself. I will pause for just a moment and bring up the centipede. Alright, and here I am back with the centipede. So I will be starting with the body. The body is parented off of the game object, off of the generic teal game object, and its instructions are simply to follow the thing in front of it, and I will be demonstrating how it does that. So here you can see it has an enum for keeping track of directions, and that is stored under current and previous. Frames traveled to check how many frames it's been moving. Once it reaches the frame size of 16, it will change position, or it will change its direction if need be. What it will do is it will check the thing in front of it, and I will demonstrate that later. Down here we have static constant movements. Up, down, move, down, or up movement, down movement, left movement, and right movement. The two pointers which make the centipede a doubly linked list. A connection to the field that it is currently a part of. And the position, its current position, head sprites, and then over here are pointers to the vector arrays, which I will demonstrate here. So here you can see that they are instantiated, just like the AI. On creation, the primary bulk of stuff has been moved to the initialize function, which I started calling initialize around the time I created this. So it will on its initialize, it will receive the forward position, the thing that is in front of it, because no body can be created without something in front of it. That's just it's just how the bodies are. They can never be spawned without there being at least one head. So on its creation, it will check a few things. First things it'll do is it'll set its movement to down, because that is how it works in the game, where the head will start moving in a random direction, but the body starts off going down and then will start following the head once it reaches that base portion of the screen. It will also check its own length, and if the length is not 0, it will create a body behind it, and it will tell itself that its previous body is that head that it just created. Let's see, down here in the updates, it will move along, the movement determined by the whatever array it is currently pointed to. And then once its frames traveled has reached the pixel grid size, which is 16. It will swap movements with whatever is in front of it. So it will look ahead, and you can see set move. So set move, next body, previous move. So it will check the body in front of it, it will check its movement and move that direction backwards. Or it will set itself to do whatever it's next, the person in front of it just told it to, or just finished doing. Ugh, sorry. Bit of a word scramble there. Next, down here in the destroy, it will, when it's destroyed, to be doubly sure, I wipe it from the nodes. The actual node switching happens elsewhere when the splits happen, which is under the collision. Set move is the thing where it will receive the enum that is the previous, or the person in the next. So the head in front of it, or the body in front of it, it will get what its previous movement was and set itself to do that movement. Very basic. And it swaps around pointers without deleting and recreating the list. And here you can see it can return its current movement and its old movement. Transformation to head, which is where if the body, well, I can go over that now in the collision. So, on collision, it will call the explosion factory where it will create its own explosion at its position. The explosion factory I will go over when I talk about the critters. The current movement it will check its position, and it will create itself a new it will create itself a new mushroom. It will talk to the field. So again, the field is acting as a listener, and it will tell the field to create a mushroom where it just died. And then it will check its next body, and if there is a next body, which there always is, then it will set that next body. It will set that next body's previous body to null, so that there's nothing tailing behind that body anymore. That body's now cut off from the other linked list, and if it is not the last node, meaning there's a node behind it, and its previous body is not null, then it will tell that to transform into a head, and then it will mark itself for destruction, and will demark the centipede. Demarking is a way of keeping track of the lists. It's a list object in the Wave Manager that keeps track of the total number of centipede body parts, heads or bodies regardless, in the Wave Manager to tell whether or not the wave is over yet. Otherwise, it will mark itself for destruction, demark itself, and will apply the points and tell the centipede to check the shot status. Otherwise, but let's go back up to the transform to head. So on the transform to head, it will check again, is the body behind it not null? If it is not null, then it will tell it that the right. So it will check ahead of it. And if it will... It will set itself. It'll look in front of it, and it will set itself to null if for some odd reason there is a body there. Just as a way of clearing pointers and making doubly sure that the pointers are all set to null. Then it will transform itself into body, which requires the head factory, mark itself for destruction, and then call the wave manager for demarking and telling it that it was shot. Both of these couldn't be in the same function for a reason that I will explain when I go over the wave manager. Alright, so that was the centipede body. Now we'll move on to the head. The head is based off of the centipede body. It is derived from the centipede body. Couldn't remember that word. And it operates in a much different fashion. Unfortunately, I was not able to get the state system into the game. I have major regrets about that, but no real excuses. I just didn't do it. So, anyways, here's the instantiation of the centipede head. It is created. There are two centipede head creations, one where it was a centipede body, and thus it can extract information from the fact that it was an old body and has a variety of different things that need to be set up. Otherwise, it has a generic just started instantiation. The just started instantiation, the one where it is created fresh at the beginning of a round, comes from the body, is extremely similar to the bodies, including the loop where it will check its length, and if it is not 0, then it will look behind it. It will create a new body behind it using the body factory. It also has checks to set its directions. The directions are utilized for a variety of things in this, including positioning for looking in front of it to check whether or not there's a mushroom. The initialize on the one that used to be a body is a little different. Instead, it's all about rearranging the pointers and making sure that the pointers are correct. Down in the update, we have a similar thing where it's still pulling from the same movements and still uses the same movement swapping that the body does, but the way that it determines its movements are what is different. So here you can see that it will check in front. Well, first it'll check player area. So check player area is simply looking, is it at the bottom, is it poisoned, or is it at the bottom or is it not? And that is all. Then it has check in front. Check in front will take the position in front of it and then talk to the field to determine whether or not there is a mushroom in that location and whether or not and if it is, then it will check if it is poisoned or not. If it is poisoned, then it will set the mushroom, or it'll set it will set the centipede to the poisoned behavior. So, after that, it will check whether or not it has reached the edges of the screen, or whether it's vertical, and if all of those, but it does have an or, so it will disregard all of that if it is poisoned. If it is poisoned, it will head straight down and ignore everything else. So, here you can see, if all of those conditions are met, then it will drop to the bottom of this, then it will determine to go down, or move up. That's dependent on the y direction. The y direction is set elsewhere. The y direction is actually set in checking player area. So if it will check the y maximum of the player area, or it'll check the y position of the player area or against the y maximum and 0. And if it is in between those things, it will swap whether or not it's moving up or down. If it is vertical, then otherwise, if it is not poisoned, then and it is vertical, it will set itself to moving either left or right, determined by what direction it was previously going. And same again down here, a catch, where it will move either left or right, determined by its previous movement. The destruction is very similar to the centipede body, where it simply removes its pointers and makes sure that nothing is pointing at it. Or make sure that it isn't dangling its pointers. It rearranges its pointers down here in collision. Once again, upon collision, it will look behind it. It will tell that thing behind it, if it exists, to transform into a head, which is why in the transform to head for the centipede head, it makes sure that it looks in front of it and deletes the pointer looking in front of it. That is the cleanup of making sure that it doesn't have anything that it is listening to. Yes. So here is the set directions. So it will swap the X direction and Y direction for whatever they need to be at the moment. And I determine a variety of different things from that. It's more of a holdover from when I wasn't using the arrays. But now I will move on to the factories, which again are singletons, and again are they operate in much of the same way as the mushroom and bullet factory. The only things of significance is the marking and demarking of the centipede parts. So of course the demarking happens in the centipede themselves, whereas the marking happens here in the creation. And also down here, sound manager. On death, that's when the sound is called. I will be going over the sound manager at a later point in time. Same for the head factory, really. Head factory has most of the same stuff, except this one has a has the special transformation thing where it will call specifically a previous location and body that it will be using for reference for a variety of different things. Alright, so this video is just about a half an hour long, so I will be stopping it here and picking it up again with the critters. Thank you, and see you in part 4.